destructive force of warfare assumes unheard-of dimensions in Vietnam. The United States drops millions of tons of bombs on this small country in Southeast Asia, many times more than the total amount dropped by all sides in World War II. The escalation of destructive frenzy is without parallel, all the more so because the opponent never stands a chance.
Der Schwache ist im Prinzip nur darum überlebensfähig, weil Umwelten hat. Das kann Dschungel sein, das kann Gebirge sein, das können aber auch Bevölkerungen sein, in denen untertaucht, die es dem Gegner schwer machen, ihn zu identifizieren. Und
once the enemy is hidden under the cover of impenetrable camouflage,
Hunderte von Quadratkilometern sich erstreckenden Tarnnetz
the temptation to remove the camouflage becomes great.
Groß zu sagen, wir nehmen das Tarnnetz weg.
The Vietnamese forces operate under the forest's thick canopy. It is the perfect hiding place and a strategic advantage that the Americans are unwilling to accept. To make use of its overwhelming air power, US forces build a network of bases throughout the country. Over the course of the war, Da Nang becomes one of the busiest air bases in the world. It is one of the centers of US aerial operations. The aircraft stationed there drop not only bombs, they also drop chemical agents.
At first, I thought they were fighting mosquitoes. They sprayed so often I can't even count the times. Sometimes they just dumped it on the ground.
The US military sprays 70 million liters of defoliants as part of a program codenamed Operation Ranch Hand. The most notorious herbicide is Agent Orange, whose name derives from its orange-colored label. One of its purposes is to eliminate the vegetation around the main supply route of the North Vietnamese Army, the Ho Chi Minh Trail, increasing visibility for US bomber pilots. Operation Ranch Hand continues for almost 10 years. By the time it's halted, around 15% of Vietnam's ecosystem has been destroyed. The area along the border with Laos used to be one of the most species-rich regions on Earth. America's herbicidal warfare program permanently changed all that. No one had the faintest idea of its long-term effects.
Many species once lived here: elephants, tigers, monkeys, even a rare type of water buffalo. The toxins and the bombs destroyed everything. By October 1974, everything was dead. Not a single living creature survived. Nothing survived.
Ngo Tung Duc is a researcher at the Hue University of Agriculture and Forestry. For years, he has been studying the area around the border with Laos. The destruction was so vast that he and his colleagues have barely made a dent in their work. Here in Ah So Valley, the footprints of war are everywhere and unmistakable.
According to the chairman of the commune, a US airbase was once located here. The aircraft here would spray Agent Orange on the surrounding territory and on Vietnamese military bases. The airbase covered around 5.5 hectares. When it rains a lot or when the sun shines, a very unpleasant odour is emitted. The local authorities believe that barrels of Agent Orange are still buried somewhere.
cái kho chứa chất độc da cam.
But the US has given local authorities no information about their whereabouts. They only know that soldiers here cleaned the spray aircraft and washed out the tanks that contained Agent Orange. No one knows how much Agent Orange leached into the ground. A few years ago, the commune chairman had a barbed wire fence erected and thorn bushes planted to prevent livestock from drinking out of the bomb craters. After the war, people resettled the region. There are a strikingly high number of miscarriages. No one knows why. 30 years will pass before the residents first hear about dioxin. In the meantime, they continue to draw their drinking water directly from the rivers. Zoologists at the Vietnam National University in Hanoi have been studying the war's effects on animal life for 4 decades. During this time, they have made some startling discoveries.
Tôi đã tìm thấy một cái con trâu
In 1980, while working in Tua Tien Huy province,
Thừa Thiên Huế
I came across a water buffalo with 2 heads. The agent that caused this animal's deformity is the same that causes deformities in human beings. Many people in Vietnam who live in regions contaminated by toxic chemicals have conjoined twins or children with 2 heads. It's no different with animals. The water buffalo here is just one example. I have also seen pigs and cows with 2 heads. It really took me by surprise. It is an extremely bizarre effect of dioxin.
Around 3 million Vietnamese were directly exposed to Agent Orange. It remains unknown how many of them have suffered long-term effects from exposure to dioxin.
She fought on Hamburger Hill and was unable to keep an eye on her daughter. She took her daughter with her because she was still nursing. She couldn't leave her alone. Then a plane came and unloaded Agent Orange. The little one was completely covered with the substance. She's been paralyzed ever since.
Researchers were in the dark for decades. They didn't understand the mechanism of the toxin and were unable to detect it.
The trees in this area were all killed. And the first time I understood that herbicide killed the trees, it was a surprise for me. Because it's different from the information we received from the US.
There is only one laboratory in all of Vietnam equipped to handle the compound. As little as a few trillionths of a gram of dioxin can have toxic effects. That's like 1 drop in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Researchers here are studying samples taken from the border area with Laos to find out how high dioxin has reached on the food chain.
We analyzed dioxin in fish, and then
we analyzed dioxin in fish and in people living nearby who eat the fish.
So
we found very, very high dioxin concentrations in their blood. I think some of the highest concentrations in the world.
On the former grounds of Da Nang Air Base, officials are trying to remove the toxic compound from the environment. Excavators remove the top layer of sediment and place it in a gym-sized containment structure where a thermal treatment system will break down dioxin's chemical bonds. The project is being supported by the United States a sign of an emerging sense of responsibility for its military actions. 40 years have passed since Operation Ranch Hand was halted, and scientists are still finding traces of the toxin in the ecosystem. Even now, several generations after the war, dioxin is still being passed through blood and breast milk. The consequences have been terrible, especially for those who never experienced the war. Dioxin changes a cell's genetic makeup and interrupts chemical signals between cells. Its molecular structure is so similar to naturally occurring hormones that the body is unable to tell them apart. Whenever dioxin is mistaken for a hormone, chaos erupts in the neurotransmission system with devastating consequences for the body. The Vietnamese have yet to receive compensation from the United States. The same does not apply to Americans exposed to Agent Orange. Like the Vietnamese, US soldiers had no idea of its dangers. Each year, the US government hands out $13 billion to help veterans of the Vietnam War. Operation Ranch Hand destroyed an ecosystem with which not only the enemy, but also US soldiers had contact. The destruction reached a point utterly beyond human control.
The use of toxic substances goes back all the way to Greek times. What is new is 20th century industrial chemical production, being able to be projected into warfare. So nature has always been collateral damage. The issue increasingly becomes nature is more fragile and warfare is more robust and powerful.
The use of Agent Orange has since been banned by international convention, but new technologies for warfare continue to be developed.